thought I would go over the Geologic Time Project rubric just to make sure that you all understand what you're supposed to do. Um, I will go over the reference table, and hopefully that will alleviate some questions and maybe stop you guys from making quite so many copy and paste type of projects, because they're not really what I'm looking for. So first things first, I'd like to talk about the what I'd like you to use. I'd like you to use Google Docs to make this assignment. You should be also using your Earth Science reference table to make the brochure or pamphlet. You can set it up as if it's a flipped brochure, so you'd have each individual page be a page. Please do not use Google Slides. It just is not really user friendly. There are 4 eras that I would like you to use, while realizing that the Precambrian is actually not an era but an eon. And so you can break the Precambrian up into its parts, and you'll find that right next to it, and I'll go over that in a second. The other parts will be the Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic, which are eras. You need to list each era, and then for each era, you're going to, underneath it, have each time period for each era. You will need to list each period underneath the era. So you should have one diagram or picture for each period. So that means for every single period, you need to have a picture. You must have 4 facts for each period. Now, for the Precambrian, it doesn't really have periods, and I'll explain that in a second. You'll have to do that for the different parts of the Precambrian, little different. So make sure you label the period to which your picture belongs. You can copy and paste the pictures, but don't plagiarize the description for the periods, okay? This is the rubric which I will use to determine what you get for a grade, okay? So going over this, I think, is probably a really good idea, so you guys can actually see what is for each section of this that you need to do. So you're going to have a section called the Precambrian, which is right here, all right? The Precambrian is broken up into 2 parts. It's called the Archean and the Proterozoic, all right? So that is broken up even further into early, late, middle, and late. But when you do the Precambrian, you should include the fact that the early Precambrian is called the Archean and the later Precambrian is called the Proterozoic. I know that these aren't periods and that they're eons, but I'd like you to include most of history, which is within this Precambrian eon. Because believe it or not, if you look at that dark line that goes right there, okay, and you follow it down, you'll see this dark line right there, here, that I'm following, is actually almost from 4.6 billion years, okay, to 542 million years, where there's the units for that. You'll notice that time period is very, very large. And so be aware of that, okay? So the Precambrian pretty much includes everything, all of this, and this goes down and underneath this. And if we could really make this like some kind of fold out page, there'd be probably like 4 pages below that green line, way down. We can't do that. It just won't fit in your reference tables. There's a lot of time. All right. So the other parts that is maybe a little bit more clear would be the eras. Okay, so your eras are broken into Cenozoic, Mesozoic, and Paleozoic. Those are broken further down into periods. So the Cenozoic contains these periods, the Mesozoic contains these periods, and the Paleozoic contains all of those periods. So in your project, it says that you need to have a picture and 4 facts about each period. So that means that in order to do this correctly, you need to be focusing on this part of the chart for a lot of your project. You will be following the order of the reference tables. So, for example, for the Cenozoic, underneath the Cenozoic should be a picture for the Quaternary, Neogene, and Paleogene. And underneath that picture, you should include 4 facts about each of those periods. You can find some information on your reference tables. There is some stuff here, and I'll show you the next page here. You can actually see in this Life on Earth section, you can actually see some of the things that occurred. Now, for the Triassic, I do not want you to just tell me that the earliest animals happened during the earliest mammals happened during the Triassic. Please be way more specific. You have a Google internet that you can look all this stuff up. So what were the earliest animals? What did they look like? It says earliest dinosaur. What's an early dinosaur? How is it different than the dinosaurs that came later? What were the earliest birds and how did they look like? Tell me some stuff other than just repeating what's on the reference tables. Go and do some research. I'm looking for individual creativity here. There are things that you can find about geologic history that are so incredibly cool. If you are interested at all in human evolution, you could spend a little time up here and describe how we got here. I mean, the humans, I mean. So this could be a really cool project, and I'm making it a little bit longer for you guys because I know that there's some of you who are interested in this stuff, or maybe you were as a kid, and this is the time to be able to explore some of that kind of fun stuff. The other side of the reference table on the other side of the reference table, has time distribution of fossils. So it's saying which fossils are in New York State and how long they lasted. So, for example, trilobites have been in New York State a very long time. They have been around a long time. Each individual type of trilobite that is in the part down below, down here, on the other page, actually, you'll see. So trilobite A existed during the Cambrian time period, which is this arrow right here. Okay, so trilobite B closer to our actual time period. I hope this helps. I just thought it was a good idea to try to put some of this together for you so that you could actually see how this chart works. And it's pretty simple. So as you guys are working through your project, you should be able to use this as a guide. The other thing that's here is important geologic events. So some of the things that could have been happening. For example, the Taconic Mountains. Those are mountains that are on the eastern side of New York State. They were a volcanic arch that slammed into North America. And they created the eastern mountains in eastern New York. So if you've ever taken the thruway out to towards like Boston, you've driven over those mountains. It's actually the highest point on the thruway that is east of the Rocky Mountains. So kind of neat, okay? This talks about how the Catskill Delta formed. It talks about the fact that the Atlantic Ocean was separating from North America. That means that Pangea was breaking apart when that happened. And also on here, you'll find images for what the Earth looked like during that time. What's interesting about that is that if you look, they marked off the U.S. And you can see that they actually are showing you that the United States has moved from up towards the north. Okay? So they've moved from just below the equator up to where we are today. So that makes a difference too, as far as what kinds of animals and stuff live, and plants.